All right, so it's 11 o'clock. We might get into it. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate your valuable time. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Taryn Holman, and I'm the National Sales Manager for Seamless Smsf. Now, over the next 45 minutes, my co-host Daniel from BGL Corporate Solutions and I will be speaking to the fabulous Joel from Hearten Up. So he can not only share his incredible personal story, but will also be sharing some fantastic tools and resources to help you identify if someone you know is struggling with their mental health, and more importantly, how you can actually support them. So why is it important that you're here? Well, if you're a part of a family, have friends, work with people, or run a business, knowing the information we're about to share is critical and could literally be the difference between life and death. And whilst that sounds dramatic, it's the truth, as you'll soon realise when we get into our chat with Joel. Some of the most successful business owners in the world make health and wellbeing a priority in their organisations. They realise that they have people working for them, not robots, and humanising the workplace doesn't just make them incredible bosses, it also means that they have higher productivity, less sick days, and a much better culture, which reduces staff turnover. So anyone that's sitting out there on the fence thinking that this stuff is fluffy woo-woo, then they really need to actually take a good hard look at the numbers and the statistics. Mental illness is increasing year on year. The financial burden, which Daniel will deep dive into in a minute, on businesses and the economy is astronomical. I am super passionate about supporting my network, and the feedback that I'm getting from my clients is that the past 2 years, whilst being financially rewarding, have been some of the most emotionally taxing they have ever experienced. You have literally been in the trenches with your clients. You know that you're more than a tax agent for them. They often bare their soul to you, and the responsibility of the emotional information that they share can feel really heavy. Couple that with the challenges that you personally faced because of COVID. You had to adjust from working from home. If you're a business owner, you quickly had to figure out how to get your team working remotely, keeping productivity high, and on top of that, wrap your head around new legislation, and those dreaded deadlines just seem to roll around quicker and quicker this year. It's been intense to say the least. And with the ever-changing landscape, thanks to this pandemic, we're seeing people be more and more fearful and anxious than ever before. That's why I am so excited to be hosting this webinar today, tapping into the wealth of knowledge that we have in our guest, Joel, and really continuing to support you through these crazy times. And in turn, you guys can support your community. The ripple effect could be ginormous, and to think about that, it just makes my heart explode. So thank you for being here. Now, I want to encourage you to ask questions that you may have, so feel free to head to the Q&A at any time, and if time does permit, we will get to them at the end of our chat. Also, make sure that you stay tuned until the very end, because thanks to Brent Saleh of SEBA, Joel will be training 100 people to become mental health first aid officers for free, and you will get the details on exactly how you can be one of those lucky people. So, Daniel, you know how grateful I am for you. Thank you for being here co-hosting with me. I would love for you to deep dive into the stats around mental health to really put things into perspective as to why this is relevant for each and every one of us, and the importance of making this a priority.
Thank you, Taryn. And look, for me, it's an honour to be here, and I'm actually quite stoked that who I'm on the panel with, insofar as Taryn and Joel. And I've only known Joel a short period of time, and only through Zoom and other meetings, but he's got an incredible story to share, which he'll deep dive into. But the fact there are so many participants here and engaged is also really positive and encouraging, because I think that the whole area of mental health and well-being is now truly starting to get the attention that it truly does deserve and need. And what I'm going to go through with everybody here is just the mental health landscape. Now, the reason we want to set the landscape is because we know that here in Victoria, we've been through a pretty rough time over the last 14, 15 months especially. And we know that at the moment, our friends in Sydney are going through a difficult time, and will step into probably a little bit more difficulty before it becomes better. But the thing that's really important for us to know is that when one suffers, we all suffer. And what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of context as to what we've been through here in Victoria, what potentially people could be going through or can be expected to go through when it comes to dealing with their clients, their people, their families, their friends. Because I think that what happened here will give a pretty strong indication as to what potentially could happen. And ideally, what we want to do is to position you at a point where you can make a difference. And Joel's going to go through some really great techniques on how you can make a difference. But the mental health landscape, we're going to focus on two things. I'm going to just focus on mental health in Australia at the moment, and then the impact on business. And then I'm going to hand it over to Joel. So when we look at the mental health statistics at the moment, and these are quite staggering. And at this point in time, it is estimated, and this was taken from the ABS, from a source that I have there listed, approximately 1 in 10 Australians is depressed. And what's even more concerning is that out of those 1 in 10, only one of them actually seeks help. And one of the things that I know that we'll cover is the importance of early intervention, and the importance of not only recognizing certain traits or behaviors, whether personally or in somebody else, that indicate that somebody may be going through difficulty, but also the importance of getting the help in a timely manner. And the reason that we go through these statistics is you just got to have an understanding as to what you could be confronted with, or your clients, or you're going to be confronted with when it comes to talking with your clients and maybe families and friends. But depression and anxiety are real, and they've been heightened even more by what's going on. Secondly, just as concerning is that the fact that 65% of people that actually go through mental health issues never get help. And this is quite staggering, is that people will suffer a lifetime of pain, anguish, discomfort, and never actually have the courage to step out. And what we hope from today is that you'll have the courage to reach out and get somebody to get the help, or that you yourself will step into and get yourself the necessary help. And on average, a person waits approximately 10 years before they ask for any help. So when you see these statistics and you see this data, we have a real dilemma on our hands. And when I was doing a little bit of research a little bit of time ago, in the workplace, approximately 50% of managers or leaders don't believe that mental health is actually an issue, which is even more staggering. But what had happened here in Victoria with the effects of lockdown and the uncertainty and the situation that we went through, there was an article the other day which basically said that 10% of Victorians thought about suicide over the last 14 months. That's a staggering 700,000 people in this state. And I know that Joel and Taryn will agree with me, getting the help has also been difficult because we know that our healthcare workers are so inundated and people having to wait months and sometimes up to a year to get the necessary help. But in this survey, there was 10% of actually thought about it. 33% of the people surveyed are either currently depressed or anxious, and 26% of the people are suffering burnout. So I say this to say that this is the landscape that many of us are going to have to deal with and work through and be aware of as we go forward. And that's at a personal level, it's at a family level, a business level, but then also know that your clients and your friends and you yourself may have children, and there's been a significant increase in what's happened insofar as contacts to the kids' helpline. I picked up an article where there's been 184% of increase in kids ringing the helpline. And of 13,000 people, of children that rang the helpline, 75% were aged between 13 and 18, and just over 1,000 of them were in the direct process of contemplating suicide and working out how to take their lives. Now, a lot of this has been escalated by what's going on and by what's happened. But the good thing is that we can all help and make a difference. And you have the power to make a difference. And even though these figures seem overwhelming and they're very confronting, we can all work together to drive these things down and create a better and safer community for all of us. The next one I just want to go into briefly is the mental ill health in the workplace. And 45% of Australians between the age of 16 and 85 will experience a lifetime mental illness. So the odds of us going through it or our clients going through it are pretty much 1 in 2. And it's a very confronting statistic. And it's a very difficult statistic to work through. But the fact is that if you're not going through something, somebody near to you or dear to you or someone that you work with or service may well be going through it. And of the financial services industry workforce, approximately 33% of people have actually suffered mental health issues. Now, when you look at that, it's a staggering figure. And I know that in my arena, when it comes to the accountants and the people that we work with, there's been a huge amount of pressure on accountants. And accountants are not just a point of contact for their finances. They become a point of contact for many other things. And the accountant actually becomes the ear to many of their clients who are going through personal issues. So they themselves are carrying a huge burden which they're not qualified to carry. But there are tools that we can go through to help you carry that burden and not feel that it's your responsibility, because you're not there to solve the issue, you're there to support. And we're going to go into that a little bit more later on.
I really love that point, Daniel. I think it's so important. We've had a couple of people ask if we'll be sharing the slides and everything. We certainly will. We'll get an email through with the recording of the webinar, as well as any slides and resources that we do talk about.
Absolutely. The cost. Now, we know there's always the mental health cost, but there's a staggering dollar cost, and the cost comes to about $13 billion a year to Australian businesses. So if you're in that, and I'm sorry to say this, it's quite confronting, but if you're in the 50% of people that don't believe that it is an issue and you're leading or manage a business or practice or people, think again, because there is a huge cost to ignoring this issue. And if it doesn't get you today, you will pay for it at some point in time, which is why we're going to encourage you to get yourselves trained up, to get proactive, to be on the front foot, because people want to be part of organizations where people take an interest in their mental and overall well-being. And then in the overall economy, the cost is $60 billion. And that was taken from the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Psychiatrists in 2016 in an article, The Economic Cost of Serious Mental Illness in Australia and New Zealand. So the impact is real and the impact is significant. It simply cannot be ignored anymore. Now, in the workplace, before I hand over to Joel, setting up a great workplace where people can feel safe, they can feel heard, they can feel supported, has never been more important. And 91% of workers say it's important to work in a in a workplace that is healthy and mentally healthy. Now, mental health and a commitment to mental health is not a once-off webinar or a once-off event where you bring somebody in and talk about it. It's a daily, continual conversation, because it's so important and it needs to be bred into your culture. And it needs to be something that's at the forefront of people and their thinking and their decisions, whether they be strategic or people or cultural. It's got to be at the forefront of it. And sadly, only 52% of people believe that their workplace fits that description. Now, that's really sad, because while there's a good part to that, let's look at the positive, that 50% believe that it does fit the description, it is supportive. There's a lot of work for us to do to increase that percentage, and we can all make a difference there. 21% of employees say they take time off in the previous year due to anxiety, depression, or feeling mentally unwell, right? So 1 in 5, they're taking time off because they're not coping, or they're just going through things that they can't deal with. And that there affects your bottom line. It affects them. It affects what you do as an organization. And what's even more concerning from my perspective is that people are actually afraid to take time off for mental health conditions, because the thing is that there is still a huge stigma associated with mental health. And each one of us, whether you're a manager, leader, business owner, no matter who you are, what role you're in, you have a role to play in dropping that stigma, in killing that stigma, because it needs to die. because the more we're open about it, the more people can be involved in the conversation, the stronger workplaces and the stronger people we're going to be able to build, which is just so important for us as individuals, as families, as organizations, as teams. No matter what we do, working to drop the stigma is critically important. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Joel, but I just want to just spend 1 minute on speaking about the power of a lived experience. Now, there's lots of textbooks, there's lots of journals, there's lots of articles, there's lots of things that are available for us to be able to, to read about this topic. But there's nothing more powerful than a lived experience. And what I mean is somebody who's actually been through it and walked through it and gone through it. And the end of the day, we see that 1 in 2 of us is going to go through it. And I think that there's nothing better than to learn from people that have been through it, that can share their inner feelings, their thoughts, make themselves vulnerable, and help you perhaps identify and recognize that you're not alone, that this is part of life, and that we can go from a conquered or defeated mentality to an overcoming mentality. And I know that, even in my life and people around me that we've been through these experiences, there is a way out, there is a way through. And what I love about what Joel is going to share with us is just, one, how it's possible to not only make sure that we're strong and we can get through, but how we can also help others get through, which is just as equally important. Because a motto that I know that I have is that I don't want to just cross the line well and strong on my own. I want to cross the line well and strong with the people that I love, care about, work with. I want them to cross that line just as strong, because doing it together and getting across the line together is just so important. So, Joel, I'm going to hand it over to you. I've got a smile on my face because I know that this is going to change lives.
Thanks, Daniel. That's a very warm and very high bar to set. I'm just a cuddly ginger from northeast Victoria. I grew up in the country. I'm not sure that I have that much power, but what I do have is a very open willingness just to let it all hang out and be a real human being. I've come to learn over time that by being real and open, life is so much more enjoyable, and I feel so much more like myself than I ever have. My mental health journey has been going on for a whole lot of my life, and I'm loath to use that word journey. It's been absolutely massacred by Australian Idol contestants over the previous couple of decades. So I'm sorry to use that vernacular, but that's exactly what a recovery journey is. Someone who goes through a period of mental ill health or who has a mental illness. It is a recovery journey, and it's something that can go up and down, and we can take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back and 5 steps forward. It's the nature of any sort of illness or any sort of health condition, just like diabetes or low blood pressure or something like that. Having a mental illness is just something that we deal with. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm certainly not ashamed, and anyone who thinks I should feel a degree of shame about that is wrong and no longer part of my circle of wonderful people. For me, the real change in my life sort of took place in 2016. And what you're seeing on screen there is essentially the LinkedIn version of my life as it was then. This is the public fluffy version. Clearly by that photo, it's the 30 kilos heavier version of my life as well. And I don't mind acknowledging that. I put that photo up. I quite like the suit. I think it's a nice color, and the tie, I do like a bit of pink. But you can see there I'm carrying a bit of extra pud, which I've since dropped a lot of. But it's an ongoing thing for me. So there's a list of fairly impressive things there. I was 31 when I was appointed to a senior role in financial services. I was probably, if I'm being honest, without being arrogant, was probably on a really good path to becoming a CEO of an organisation by the age of 40. And I achieved a lot of good things with my teammates, the people I worked with. And it was a really wonderful life on paper, on LinkedIn. It was a wonderful version on paper. What was going on before that, though? I just want to take you back slightly earlier. All of those things look wonderful, but really, I kind of have no right to have ever achieved those things. I'm I guess the surprise or wonderful accident child of high school sweethearts. They were 18 and 19 when I was born. And knowing that you are an accident is actually, now that I'm on the other side of some challenges, it's so bloody liberating. I can't really get in trouble off my folks. What are they going to tell me? I'm their biggest mistake. They don't really have any credibility when it comes to Joel, pull your head in. So I love that. I lived in a town in northeast Victoria called Wangaratta. I see there's someone here from Wangaratta today with us. So hello, you're one of my people. But not only did I grow up in a place called Wang, which I didn't know the meaning of until I left Wang, I went to the local Catholic high school called Galen. And you can imagine that the high school kids had a bit of fun with our name. And to top things off, our school uniform when I first started was brown. You can see from the photo on the screen that I am not someone who would look good in brown. It's not the most flattering colour for me. In many ways, I was like a Michelin man. And I'd just like to share with you my class photo from year 7, so you can see just how flattering our uniform was. We weren't all that attractive. I did look like the poo emoji, and that's okay. I'm happy to acknowledge that that things weren't all that very complimentary to me in a fashion stakes early on in my life. Jokes aside, though, everyone that we meet in our life, everyone we work with, everyone we interact with at the supermarket, the bakery, Vic Roads, wherever it might be, we're all human, and we all have a backstory, and we all carry that backstory with us everywhere. And regardless of whether we're conscious of it or not, it is part of who we are, and it shapes who we are whenever we interact with somebody. So I can see there my backstory. I've talked about a few of those things. Probably the thing that had the biggest impact on me, unsurprisingly, was losing my dad to suicide. I was 16, he was 35, and my parents had split up around 5 years earlier. And my dad was, while I was growing up, my dad was my hero. He was the man that I wanted to emulate, I wanted to be like. He was 6'3", built like a brick outhouse, a tough country footballer, but also really gentle at home, and a wonderful storyteller. My mum is as well. I'm blessed to have parents who love story and who love sharing and communicating. And so my dad had moved away around 5 years before he died, and we saw him on school holidays. That was the arrangement that we had, and that was as much as we saw him. But the summer before my dad died in 1998, my brothers and I spent 3 weeks with my dad, and I loved it. I felt like we were finally becoming friends as well as father and son, and to become a closer friend of someone who you have up on a pedestal. For anyone who's experienced that sort of connection with someone, it's really amazing and really powerful. And so I had this relationship with my dad that I'd long hoped for, and it was coming to pass. And we'd made some plans for the future, but sadly none of the plans we made came to be, because my dad, around 6 weeks after that summer ended, my dad ended his own life and died by suicide. It was very much an unexpected thing. This is 1998, quite a different time, even though it's only 20 odd years ago. But it really hit me for 6, and it's something that I can now see in hindsight I didn't process and grieve and mourn in a healthy way for about 17 or 18 years. I came to terms with him no longer being around, but what I'd underestimated was the impact of having a parent essentially choose to no longer be a part of your life. That's a big thing to deal with. And while I understand completely now how my dad got to be in that position, because I've since been there myself, it's still hard, and it's still something that can take a long time to work your way through. So I got to be I got to 34. I pushed my way through life, and I made success and achievement the way that I measured how good of a human I was. That's what I did. I worked my butt off. You saw earlier on from the LinkedIn version of my life that my team and I had done some really good things. We achieved things that people hadn't done before, and we set some new benchmarks. It was great. Felt like a bit of a champ. But then my perfect life on paper fell apart for me too. I got to be 34 in 2016, and my mental health fell apart completely. And for me, it was a perfect storm of my marriage ending, me being unhappy with where my life was heading, and long a long history of depression, anxiety, and some PTSD really sort of got the better of me. In the previous years, I'd done things like take the meds and hoped that that would solve everything, but it doesn't. Medication can be, if a professional prescribes it to you as part of your mental health treatment and recovery plan, it can be a really positive thing. But it was all I was doing, and there were other things that I now do, which put me in a much better place. So in 2016, I was really worried that I was following my father's script and heading down the same path as him. He was 35 when he died. He had a broken marriage and 4 children. I was 34. I had a broken marriage, 3 children, and I was really quite worried that I might have been following his example. I didn't want to. I really wanted to feel better. I really wanted to feel something other than despondence and numbness, but I didn't know how. And I realised that I did have a really big opportunity to create the sort of life that I could be proud of. And the blessing of losing a parent to suicide is that while he's not around anymore to teach me anything or show me the way to do things, he's given me a terrific example of what not to do. And I don't mean to sound trite or false in saying that, but having a parent show you something that really does not work, that can be just as powerful as them leading the way in a positive way. And so I wanted the opposite outcome to my dad. I wanted to stay alive. I wanted to survive and thrive. That's what I wanted. And so I decided that I was going to take the opposite outcome. Take the opposite actions to my dad because I wanted the opposite outcome. And so from that point on, I've really committed myself to being very open about who I am, the sorts of things that I manage and the sorts of things that I've experienced in my life. And I'm really open to asking for help and for taking that help and accepting it and being grateful for it. It's sort of led the way to me experiencing some things that I previously wouldn't have thought were possible. I've always wanted to be a writer when I was young, and I always wanted to be somebody who talked with groups of people and shared my experiences and connected and really felt like a human that was part of a community. And the silver lining of having that blank canvas that I discovered in 2016 was that I've been able to do those things. I wrote a show about my dad and me. It's a comedy show, believe it or not. It's a compassionate comedy show about the masculinity in our family across a few generations. And I've written an article about my dad and me and different mental health journeys and how his has ended, but mine is continuing on with many things that I've learned from him. And so to be a child who wanted to write and talk with people, I've now done those things. And I wouldn't have been able to do those things if I didn't have the example of what not to do from my dad. So I'm very grateful for, I guess, the push and the drive that led me to that. Something else I've been able to do is to commit myself to running a 10K fun run. Now you can see from previous photos of me and even the one on the screen, an action shot, if you can call it that. I am not built for running. I am not a natural athlete. Gravity and momentum are my biggest friends. And I'm glad that that photo shows me going down a slight incline because it looks as though I have some pace up. I didn't. I'm not a fast runner. It doesn't come naturally to me. But it's something I wanted to set myself to do. I thought doing a 10K fun run and raising funds for Mental Health First Aid Australia, an organisation whose work I love, was a really positive, healthy goal for me to have. And through that fun run, we raised enough money so that I was able to become an instructor or a facilitator in mental health first aid. And I love that because it's now my vocation. That's what I do. I'm no longer a wanker in a suit. I get to spend my time wearing a flanny or a shirt as I am today, whatever it is, talking with people about being human and the power of just being open and supporting each other and having real supportive conversations.
Joel, not all suit wearers are wankers, by the way.
I know that. I was. You saw a photo of me. I know a lot of people who are wonderful and who look amazing in suits. I was not one of them, and that's all right. I'm self-aware. I didn't mean to tar you with my brush.
I absolutely love your story, and I love how vulnerably you are sharing. And I really hope that the audience, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We will definitely assist.
Thanks, Taryn. Sorry to tar you with my brush either as well with the comment. That was my thing. So what can we do? Well, firstly, I'll just let you know that tell you a bit about Hearten Up. Hearten Up became a motto for me. My dad grew up in the era where men were encouraged to harden up and be a man. And the outcome for him was that he's no longer here, and my children never met their grandfather. But I decided to live quite the opposite way, and so Hearten Up became a motto for me. And quite accidentally in 2019, I registered the business name of Hearten Up, and it turned out to be what would have been my dad's birthday. I didn't plan it that way. It was just the day that I ended up doing the paperwork to register it. It wasn't until later I realised it, and that felt really cool. I like the synergy of that. And through Hearten Up, I deliver mental health first aid training, and I'm rapt to be supporting Brent Saleh, Managing Director of SEBA, Business Tax Accountants and Advisors, through what he's done, which is run a marathon and raise money to be able to train 100 people at no cost to them in mental health first aid. That's extraordinary. And to be able to support him and do that is an incredible thing. Some of the things that we learned through mental health first aid training, this is just a very short snippet of what is essentially a 12-hour course delivered over a couple of sessions. What we do is we become more comfortable and confident, and we learn, hopefully, how to notice changes from what someone else's normal might be. And there is no checklist, there is no perfect way to identify exactly who might be struggling with their mental health. But if we notice over a period of time in the people we work with and live with and interact with and love and care about, we might notice that some of the things that are on your screen now could be evident in others. It doesn't mean that they are going through a period of mental ill health. It just means that as a few more of these things may be identifiable or noticeable in them, then it might be worth us stepping into their orbit and saying, hey, how are you going? How are you really going? And not just asking, are you okay? That's a wonderful thing, and I love the work the organisation has done. But when the answer is no, or it's a yes, but we suspect it's really a no, what do we do? And that's what mental health first aid really gives us the skills and confidence to do.
And Joel, just to add to that, sometimes they can just be very subtle changes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And all those changes do, and I know that I've through my experience, is that they just give you an avenue of permission to ask. And it's really important that we look for those subtle changes, as you said, and even the bigger changes, because it can sometimes be just there's more underlying to that change, or there may be bigger things that are affecting a person's behaviour, or for them to just, to behave in a way that's not normal. But I love noticing changes in behavioural patterns as a way to just get that permission to ask the question. Mm. And you can always refer back to, hey, I've noticed this. Are you okay? Or what's going on? It's not your normal self. And I just think it's just a wonderful way to get permission into people's lives.
Absolutely. That's actually what I loved, because I got my accreditation with Joel. That's how we met. And really just knowing how to frame it. So it's not offensive, it's kind, it's coming from a good place. And to feel empowered enough to know what to do if they do actually say, yeah, I'm struggling. I think that's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good points that you've both made. I love the fact that this is a tag team webinar without blowing smoke, because I don't need to. I'm already here. It has been really cool getting to know you both over the course of the past few months. But anyway, before you both blush, some of the things that we can work through as a supportive human being with our peers and our family and our friends is just to approach the person from a place of care and compassion, particularly if we've noticed something like more agitation or more conflict. Often, and this is something I've learned over time, have been in the past a fiery redhead. So whenever someone's got up in my grill, my natural instinct was to try and get closer into the grill and be the top dog. That is not healthy. That is not constructive. And what I've learned over time is that whenever someone is feeling more agitated and maybe expressing that in a way with us, which is not enjoyable for us, it can be a sign that something's going on for them and that they need and could really do well with a supportive human being, having a conversation with them. So we do try and approach people with care and compassion, and to leave any judgment we might have at the door. We are not going to have a successful conversation or supportive experience with someone if we bring our judgment to it, because we're all human. You've seen earlier on the sorts of things that I had done and achieved, but beneath that I was a mess. We're all human underneath, outside of LinkedIn and in our real lives. But just reminding people that we care and that we're there for them. And if they ever do want to talk, that's a great conversation. It's a great way to leave a conversation if someone doesn't really feel like talking with us. So there are some things that we can do, and we will share these slides with you as well afterwards. You don't need to memorize them all. Some of the other things that I've learned over time are the really strong correlation and link between our physical health and our mental health. Now you can see that I'm not the picture of extreme physical health. I'm a work in progress because I'm a human. I don't think I'll ever nail it, but I'm happy just to inch my way towards getting there at some point. But the 4 foundations of good physical, mental health, good sleep and rest, good nutrition, good exercise and movement, and good connections. Daniel was talking earlier on around the importance of connection, especially during the really tough time that our friends in New South Wales are experiencing at the moment. I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly what it's like for you, but Daniel, Taryn and I went through Victoria's 13-week, 6-week lockdown last year, and it's a challenge. So we're here for you, people of other states. The good Victorians won't tell you that we had it worse, and the good Victorians won't tell you that you need to suck it up because we had it last year. It's not a case of having a turn. You're part of Australia, you're part of our community, and we're here for you in any way we can be. Good connections are really important. Some of the things we might be able to do is arrange family or work trivia nights on Zoom. Anything like that we can do to stay connected is really important and helps us feel a little bit more, I guess, closer to what our normal understanding of interaction is. When I talk about Hearten Up, the reason I talk about Hearten Up is not only is it a catchy phrase and it challenges that traditional masculinity of hardening up, or that humanity of hardening up. But how do we hearten up? We do that by being open. And the 4 ways I encourage people to be open. Firstly, be open with yourself about how you're feeling. If you're feeling run down and tired, or you're feeling agitated, or you're feeling overwhelmed and you need a break from people, that's fine. Do it. Give yourself the permission to acknowledge whatever you're feeling and to put yourself first, because we can't fill up anybody else's cup unless our own cup is full. We also should be comfortable in being honest with those who we love, because we need them and they need us. So if we're open about how we're feeling with those who love and who need us, we're going really long way to normalising the sorts of conversations about our well-being and our mental health. We should also hopefully feel comfortable about being open to seek and accept help. There is nothing wrong with going to see people because you need some support with your mental health. I see my GP or talk to my GP now, telehealth is wonderful, every month, and I have done for about 6 years. I see a psychologist on average every couple of months, and I have done for about the same time. For me, that's like taking my car for a service. I feel no shame about it. He's a good person. And if you find that the first GP or psychologist you go to see doesn't click with you, that doesn't mean they're all crap. It just means that one wasn't the right fit for you. Go and find another one, or ask somebody else if they know another one. There is nothing wrong with specialist shopping when it comes to mental health, because that connection is really important. And lastly, what I've learned in recent years is just to be open to life, open to living with all its ups and downs. Life can be really shit sometimes, but it can be really bloody beautiful and incredible as well. I have an amazing sense that I'm doing the sorts of things that I really enjoy now, and that really give me a sense of value and importance. It's significantly less, financially rewarding than the previous roles I've had, but I wouldn't change it for the world. The sorts of adventures and journey, that word again, that I've had to get me here, I've in hindsight gone back over them and seen that there are things that I can take away from each of those things. And I love the fact that on the cusp of 40, I feel like I'm almost just starting my real life. It's an incredible thing to feel, and I'm not trying to rev you up or give you a false sense that life is amazing, because it can be, but it can also not be. What I'm trying to share with you is that really everyone is human, and everything is, yes.
We have actually got a great question from Kate Holman. Hello, Kate. She's from Dijon Reed, and she would love your suggestion. She's got a friend that has a mental health issue and actually talks to her quite often, but then says you wouldn't understand because your life is perfect. So she's actually asking, what would you suggest in that situation before you carry on? What would your suggestion be to Kate to help a friend?
I can understand the question. It's a really good one, Kate. Thanks for bringing it up. Everyone is human. None of our lives are perfect. And if someone who is struggling with their mental health has a view that our life is perfect, that to me is an incredible opportunity to share with them just how much it's not, and to say, yes, I have these great things going on, and it might look perfect, but can I lift the hood for you? Here are some of the other things, past or present, that have been quite challenging, and here are the other ways in which it's not picture perfect, and just normalize being human with them. I think that's a really, I can understand the person perceiving that a life might be perfect, but I think that's a really great opportunity to pull open the kimono and show them that it's not.
Can I just add to that, Joel, for a sec? Just, you spoke about being open and honest. So there's power in vulnerability, and there's power in being open and honest. Vulnerability is so powerful because it brings people to your world, and it also just drops your guard so that people have got the confidence to come closer, right? And I do love that. I love the fact that, if you've got the courage to make yourself vulnerable, not only does it normalize conversations, but it brings people closer to you, and it just makes the conversations easier. And then on the flip side, when you are going through that, the fact that she is open and honest with you, that is an amazing opportunity, as Joel said. And then that's almost like an open door, a permission for you to step through and really normalize, or, just to show the other side of the fact that, hey, it may look like this, but, I do have flaws. We all have flaws. And making yourself vulnerable could really help that person in that situation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. Well said. So that sort of brings to an end I was going to say life, but my sharing of my life thus far, and my hopefully some positive suggestions and helpful suggestions with all of you. It's been a real treat, and I know that we've got a couple of things, and Taryn's going to invite any questions that people might have. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's jumped on today, choosing to spend time out of your day learning about and talking about on the area of mental health and being human. I think that's an incredible sign that we're doing as best we can in some challenging circumstances to really support each other. So thank you, everyone.
Well, if there are any questions, please drop them in the chat now or the Q&A. We'd love to answer them. I've got like 1 more minute before we'll have to wrap up. Thank you very much for sharing, Joel. I love your story. I love that you're living a life of purpose. I love that you're out there helping people and making a difference. It's incredible. So we've got a question here just saying, how would you manage a client with mental health issues? So obviously it's not a friendship, so it's not as close. What would you recommend? Joel?
Okay, sorry, I was going to leave that one open. Yeah, look, that's a tough question. One of the things that is a wonderful segue from that question to the slide that's on your screen now is mental health first aid training is a terrific way to give someone the skills and confidence to support a person who might have some mental health challenges. But a really important thing to note is that we don't need to take the pressure of fixing that person on. It's not something that we need to completely let rest with us. A mental health first aider or a mental health first aid officer is there like a physical first aider. If someone breaks their leg, we might provide them some initial comfort and arrange for the professionals to step in. We're not going to set their leg. We're not going to insert a rod through their bone. And same with mental health first aid. It's not our role to diagnose or treat. Our role is to provide that initial support to normalise and encourage help seeking and help acceptance, and to steer them in a direction that might be good for them. So any questions about how to support a client or a customer or anyone else, go to the link that I'm about to post in the chat, jot your name down to become one of the SIVA 100 people who can do mental health first aid training at no cost. And over that time, we'll help you develop the skills and confidence to be able to support someone at that time and steer them in a positive direction.
Yeah, I just want to add to that too. Like, I've also done the first mental health first aid course through Mental Health First Aid Australia. And what was amazing about it was the fact that it actually just gave me the insight and the ability to have the awareness of the resources that I could point people to. And we were talking about this yesterday with Taryn and also with Joel about accountants are problem solvers, and they put on the problem solving hat. And one of the things that I can encourage you with is that, and whether they're an accountant listening in or whatever, no matter what discipline you're from, as Joel said, Taryn's mentioned too, you're not there to solve their mental health issue. You're there to come alongside them and support them with genuineness and with care. And all they want is just to feel that they're supported and to know that they've got you as a support to help them through. And that's all you're there for. And that's what really liberated me with the mental health first aid course, is the fact that it made me realize I'm not there to solve the problem. I'm just there to point people in the right direction. And it was such a powerful thing to be able to do.
Look, we'll get one more question in before we wrap up. There's been a few people are really appreciative, so thank you. And we will be actually getting the recording out with questions. We do have someone that's just said they've got an employee that's actually struggling at the moment, and they're open to the boss actually making an appointment for them, but she's just unsure where to actually find someone. So what would your first recommendation be for that, Joel?
Firstly, I'd say good on you for being open to supporting that person and for creating a sort of environment where they feel comfortable sharing that with you. I'm not blowing smoke. I don't know who you are, but well done. It's exactly what I would want out of a boss or a manager or a colleague. Someone who's happy and comfortable for you to arrange for them to see somebody. I would just jump online and look at some reviews for GPs in the area. You could also contact Beyond Blue and ask them for a list of GPs and medical professionals in the area, and explain that you're supporting someone at work, and they'll send you a bunch of information which will be helpful in the interim as well. We're really spoilt in Australia for the number of mental health organisations that do an incredible amount of research and provide a wide raft of support services. So take them on, be open to them. There's another great service that Beyond Blue and an organisation called Wellways here in Victoria, and I believe it's also in southern New South Wales and parts of WA as well, where people can access some phone coaching and phone support completely free of charge. And that's designed as an interim measure because the wait period for some supports can be quite long. So I would get onto Beyond Blue and ask for some guidance and support on a person making an appointment and maybe getting some phone support as well. But good on you for helping them. That's bloody brilliant.
Now I can see the link isn't working, apparently, Joel, in the chat.
I think your website's down, Joel.
So what we will do is actually include it in the email that we send out if it's not working right now on this webinar.
No, do you know what I think happened, Taryn, is I think a number of people went to register and it might have overloaded. Now it's working.
Exciting. Got overwhelmed. Well, look, I am really mindful of the time, so we'd better leave it there. I would love to thank my fabulous co-host Daniel and the incredible Joel from Hearten Up today for volunteering their time. I really hope that you now realise you don't need to solve people's problems or have all the answers. This is not your burden to carry. You simply need to identify that there's an issue and point them in the right direction to get the assistance that they need. And together, guys, we can make a difference. Just a special shout out again to Brent Saleh for his unbelievable efforts in raising money and awareness, and also giving you the opportunity to become a mental health first aider for free. Like I said, we're going to be sending an email out to absolutely everybody with all of the takeaways from our discussion, along with resources, and we'll include that link. And we'll include our details as well. So if any of you want to reach out directly, we really would love to hear from you. Feel free to contact any one of us to discuss it further. And thanks again for attending today. We know that you're busy and we appreciate your time. Have a fabulous day. See you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Taryn. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.